introductions, they go on and on, people say wonderful things about you, you're such a phenomenal lawyer. I get ain't a little fuck. From the woman, by the way, who told you that she won't say the F word anymore. Okay, lots of great stuff. In my experience, there are three kinds of people, three kinds of cross-examiners amongst criminal defense lawyers. There are, one, that group of people who are naturally good at cross-examining. There are two, those people, like me, who are not naturally good at cross-examining. And there's the third group of people who think they're in and really they're in group two. Okay? I was taught by one of the masters in group one. And if any of you have heard Larry Posner lecture, you know, he is phenomenal. He is as good as it gets. And I'm telling you, I am not. I started off working for him, and I was terrified, and I was intimidated, and I said to myself, I cannot do this. And the wonderful thing about this method of cross-examination, of preparing to cross-examining and delivering cross-examination, is that it does wonderful things for people in all three groups. Because I watched for 11 years as one of the best naturally good cross-examiners that anybody will ever see anywhere got better as a result of developing this system and teaching this system. I watched as myself went from a brand new lawyer who was absolutely terrified, and the first cross-examinations I did got so balled up and so lost and so horrible that I'm going to wait till the end and I'm going to show you pictures of what that looks like. Okay? And I've watched people who think that they're in group one and are in fact group two learn to become better and better and better with or without the realization they're really not in group one. No, it doesn't matter. Okay? But the whole key to this is preparation and control. Okay? And I really want you to remember that, and so I want to try and give you the image of preparation and control. That's what I want you to think about when you think about what are you doing in cross-examination. Okay? The next thing that I want you to remember is that this is not the primary tool of cross-examination. We want it to be. You know, when it's done really well, it feels to us like it should be. We are going to deliver the death blow, right? We're going to go in and we're going to rip this witness's heart out. We're going to take his heart out, rip it out of his throat, throw it on the floor, and stomp on it. And we're going to win this case with one huge crushing blow. But I'm telling you that that's not the tool. It's not only not the primary tool, it's not a good tool at all. That's the right tool for cross-examination. It's done with a scalpel and not with a sledgehammer. And it's always done with a scalpel. Okay? Even when what we're going to do is we're out to kill the witness. And by the way, we're not always out to kill the witness. When we are out to kill the witness, we're going to kill the witness with a scalpel and not with a sledgehammer. Okay? Most prosecution cases bleeds to death from 1,000 little cuts, not from one big stab to the heart. And that's what we're out to do. And we're going to do it by preparation, and we're going to do it by control. What do I mean by control? What kind of control? One, it's going to be your control of the case. It's going to be your control of the facts and the answers. And in cross-examination, it's going to be your control of the witness. And that last piece is why this is so difficult. Because for the witness, most of the time, they don't come into the courtroom understanding that their job is to be controlled by us. Right? They come into the courtroom thinking they have this story to tell. And sometimes they come into the courtroom believing that they have a story to tell regardless of what we're doing and in spite of what we're doing and in our faces. And those, of course, are the most difficult to control. Again, the wonderful thing about this system that I'm going to talk to you about is that it works on the easy witnesses, and it works on the moderate witnesses, and it works on the most difficult witnesses who are out to rip your hat out and stomp it on the floor. it works on everybody, okay? I promise you. So, first of all, when we talk about how we're going to get and maintain control, it's very important to understand what cross-examination is not, okay? First of all, it is not always a contest with the witness. It is not always a contest between you and the witness. And despite how competitive we are, some of us that get into this business are, slightly competitive, right? I went to work out this afternoon to try and burn off a little bit of the energy, and I'm swimming laps. And I noticed myself, all of a sudden, there's some guy. I've never met the guy. 3 lanes over, and he's going faster than I am. And by God, I'm going to beat him. And pretty soon I'm like nuts. I'm like out of breath. This is, crazy. I got to go deliver a lecture. I'm going to have no energy left whatsoever. But by God, I can beat the shit out of that stranger. And I watch lawyers do this in court. And I watch criminal defense lawyers do it, particularly with who? Us. Right. Thank you very much. The guy is wearing a uniform. He is naturally the enemy. It is naturally our goal to kill him. Wrong. 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 Okay? I remember, I think, hearing Jeff Robinson say words to the effect of, there is no ideal juror independent of the theory of the case. Anybody remember that? Yeah. I wrote it down. You should have written it down too. Here it comes again. Okay? There is no good cross independent of the theory of the case. Anybody see a pattern here? There is no good opening, right? There is no good direct. There is no good anything in a court of law independent of your theory of the case. There are witnesses who you can absolutely beat the crap out of, stomp on, and make look foolish. And if it doesn't advance your theory of the case, you can't do it. I don't care how much fun it is. And I know it's fun. Believe me. I'm one of these sick people that looks for these opportunities. It's so great to make the guy look horrible, right? You can't do it unless it advances your theory of the case. And when we're out there, always seeing cross-examination as a contest between us and the witness, always letting that competitive piece of us beat out everything else, then we're in danger of doing just that. Okay? Here's another thing that we do really well as criminal defense lawyers. We are great counterpunchers, right? Because we always have to go second, right? They always get to do their opening. They always get to do direct. We get very much into the mode of counterpunching, right? We're waiting for them to come to us, and then we're going to look for that opening, and boom, we're going to throw that shot, right? So we counterpunch sometimes just because we can. Because we see the opening and we land the punch. If it doesn't advance your theory of the case, don't do it. That's the beauty of the National Criminal Defense College system of learning how to do trials. Because otherwise, you know what a trial is? It's 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, depending on the length of the case, decisions that you have to make. Do I put the witness on? Do I not put the witness on? Do I ask the question? Do I not ask the question? Do I keep this juror? Do I not keep this juror? Do I keep that juror? Do I keep that juror? Do I object or do I not object? Do I object strong or do I object? That you have to make with no good reason to make the decision. When you have a good, solid theory of the case, you always have a reason. All you have to do is look to your theory of the case and you say, does it advance the theory? Then I do it. If it doesn't advance the theory, even if it is neutral to the theory, I don't do it. There's too much shit to worry about. I can get these things done. And only these things that advance the theory of the case. And that's especially true in cross. Because everything is dangerous. We're always within an inch, a millimeter, a tenth of a millimeter of losing control. Because it's not just us up there telling our story. Right? We have to get the story told through the witness somehow. And so we're always within a millimeter of losing control. And so everything that we can do to keep control, we have to do. All right, so we've started the case, and we have a good theory and a theme for our whole case. You know what else we need? We need a theory for this witness. You need to be able to tell me what your theory of this witness is. Okay? Does this sound familiar to anybody? I hope so. Andrea said it to you on day one. You have to have a theory and theme of the witness. Is this a witness who has good, helpful, accurate information that advances our theory of the case that simply hasn't been brought out yet? Why would it not have been brought out on direct examination? I don't know. Maybe because it advances our theory of the case. And maybe because the prosecutor's hoping that you don't know about it. You didn't investigate it. You haven't done your homework. And you don't realize that this witness can advance your theory of the case. More likely, what is it? That we know more or that they know more? I think it's probably a safe bet that we've worked harder, prepared harder, because we have a harder job and we know more. And they're going to be surprised when we use the witness that they called, in theory, their witness, to bring out good facts that advance our theory of the case. Is this not a witness who has helpful information to bring out and to advance our theory of the case? Is it rather someone who's got harmful information that hurts our theory of the case? And if it is, then we have to decide why that slide is there. I'll tell you why that slide is there. That slide is there because I was going to tell you at the beginning that everything that I'm telling you is stolen. Okay, this business is all about theft. Okay? The reason that you are here for 2 weeks is to steal from us. Is to steal from one another. Steal, steal, steal. Okay? That's what it's all about. This stuff that I'm telling you is all stolen from this book, among other things, among other places. None of it's original. Not a single freaking word is original. Okay?
And they stole it too.
He stole it too. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But he got a copyright, and so, you know. This is a great book. It is a wonderful book. Okay? Buy it. It's really freaking expensive. Okay? So, you know, 7 or 8 of you get together and buy it. All right? Talk your office into buying it. You know, get to be really good friends with someone that owns it, because it's got wonderful ideas. Okay, thanks for that interruption. Now we're back on. See, you can't get away from advertising. Is the witness who's not telling you the truth mistaken? That's one possibility. Is the witness misinformed? Is the witness incompletely informed? You have to have a theory of the witness, okay? Is the witness lying? For those of you that like, what do you call those charts, those trees?
Decision trees.
Decision trees, flow charts. We could do one, but I don't like them and I don't know how, so. Whoop. Oh, shit. Punchline before the joke. Right. You have to have a theory of the witness, okay? If the information is incorrect, cross needs to be done in a particular way. It makes a big difference why the information is incorrect. And the cross looks and sounds and feels very differently if the person is mistaken versus if the person's misinformed, or they're incompletely informed, or if they're lying. Now, if they're lying, there are also 2 possibilities in the decision tree, okay? One is that they are maliciously lying, that they are making up lies in order to hurt you, right? In order to hurt somebody. And the second possibility is that they are stupid and they believe the lies that somebody else has told them, and they are repeating them. And it makes a huge difference in your theory of the cross if you believe that this witness is maliciously making up lies versus if you believe that this witness believes what they are saying to you, has talked themselves into the lies, or has had someone else talk them into the lies. You see why I say to you, you can't pick up the sledgehammer? You can't go after a witness who believes now that it's the truth with a sledgehammer. Because the jury's not going to let you. Because the jury's going to have some sympathy for that poor Yutz who's talked himself into the lies, who's not smart enough to understand that that's what he's done. But you can kill that witness and the malicious witness just as dead if you go after both of them very carefully and very precisely with a scalpel and make those 1,000 cuts. Figuring out which of these people that the witness is will cause you to be able to do several very important things when you're cross-examining the lying witness. You have to figure out, for the witness who's lying, what that witness must admit, okay? What that witness will admit. What's the third thing?
What they will.
What they absolutely can never admit, no matter what. Now, hopefully, I will remember to talk to you several times about why we don't ask one question too many in cross-examination. Some of you have heard of this. Probably of all of you have heard of this. It's the worst thing that you can do on cross-examination is ask one question too many. Right? Mm-hmm. And when we ask one question too many, a lot of times the one question too many is because we've done what? We've gotten the witness to admit what he must admit. We have asked questions that either require him to admit what he will admit because it's logical, or we've left the jury in a position where they understand that he should have admitted what's logical. And three, we have to understand that he will absolutely never, ever, ever admit certain things, and the jury will get that too because we've done 1 and 2. We've gotten the witness to admit what he must admit, and generally that's because we already know the answer, right? We'll talk about this, because he's made the admission in a police report, in a statement, in a transcript, in prior testimony. It's been made by some witness that he absolutely can't disagree with. There are all sorts of reasons that the witness must admit certain things. Second category of things are those that flow from that, and we're going to talk about how we set those up in chapters of cross-examination. And then the third thing is you just absolutely never, ever, ever ask that question of what is it that the witness can never admit. And you have to figure those things out. We'll come back to that. Remember this also. Good cross-examination is about you testifying. The witness becomes a prop. Which one of us can get this information out better? The witness or you? Who tells this story better? You or the witness? You do. Why? It's your story. You thought it up. It's your theory of the case. You're the one who's putting the hours and hours and hours figuring all of this out. Figuring out what it is that needs to take the jury, what path the jury needs to go down in order to be able to acquit. So you're the better person to tell the story. That's what you're going to do in cross-examination. It's an opportunity for you to testify, for you to state the facts, and the juror and the witness to agree with you. That's what we're looking for here in cross-examination. So let's talk about how we're going to establish control and how we're going to do that. Because it's all about our credibility. We are going to be testifying to the jury, and therefore we have to have great credibility. Here's how we're going to do this. 3 rules. Only leading questions. And when I say only leading questions, I really mean only leading questions. We can have a debate, and there's a debate among members of the faculty about, is there a circumstance in which you can ask a non-leading question? And my answer to you, which I will defend to the death, is absolutely, categorically, not ever, period. And I've heard stories, and you can tell me anecdotes. I asked the question, you know what? Great, I'm sure that you did. You took a risk, and you took a risk that you didn't need to take. And you offered up control when you didn't need to offer up control. And you know what? Maybe I am an anal little fuck. And maybe I'm just terrified of losing control. You know what? Talk to my shrink about it. I know that what happens in trial is that shit can go really bad, right? Who was it? I think Colette told you the story about the unlosable case that was unlosable until the client took the stand, right? That's because somebody else had to tell that story. That's because the lawyer was surrendering control. And the more we can be in control, if we have a good story, the greater the chance that we're going to win. I'm telling you, don't take the chance. Don't take unnecessary risks. And if you only ask leading questions, you take no risks, period. And I believe that you lose nothing, okay? 1, only leading questions. 2, only short questions. Only short questions. And I mean really, really short, okay? Terry McCarthy talks about how do you get down to only 1 word of question. You bet, that's the ideal. You know what my ideal cross looks like in transcript form is there's not very much black on the page, it's a lot of white. Because there's 1 line and 1 word. 1 line, 1 word, 1 line, 1 word. The word always being yes, by the way. It's me saying 1 line and the witness saying 1 word. And one of the nicest things that any court reporter has ever said to me was, called me up on the phone and said, you know, those questions, do you want me to put question marks at the end of them? Because they weren't really questions. They were just sort of statements. And the witness kept saying yes. I was like, yes! Absolutely. Put question marks, put exclamation marks. I don't give a shit what you say. I'm just doing what I set out to do. I'm making statements and the witness is agreeing. Okay? 1 line, 1 word. Can you get it down to 1 word? Make yourself a game out of it. You know, if you do the kind of cases that Colette does, you get to do crosses like, you know, what was it? You touched it, you licked it, you poked it. You know, and I get it down to 1. Touched it, licked, poked. The shorter the better. Why? Why would, oh, by the way, what was the third? I told you there were 3 rules. 1, only leading questions, only short questions. What's the third one? 1 new fact per question. Why are we doing this? Control. Because if you ask the witness a long question, the witness is invited to give you a long answer. If they disagree with something in the long question, they can say no and give an explanation. If they disagree with something in the very short question, the explanation that they're going to give either doesn't make sense, or it's going to be very obvious to the jury that the witness is trying not to answer the question. Now this happens, right? I mean, all of you have had cross-examination of cops. All of you know that there are cops out there who are the kind of people that my mother would call. You ask him what time it is, and he tells you how to make a watch. You have this witness? Did you get out of the car? What I did was exit from my official police vehicle. I responded to the front door of the house where I observed it. No. Right? When you ask 1 short question with 1 new fact per question, the jury gets it. That it's very simple and it calls only for a yes or no answer, and that the answer really is yes. The witness also begins to get it. You get into a rhythm here, and there absolutely is rhythm in cross-examination. And when we ask short questions, it encourages the witness to say yes, and it takes us down the path that we need to lead the witness down. So we're doing only leading questions. We're doing only one new fact per question. The other thing that doing very short question does is it allows you to make more of what you have. It also forces you to be more descriptive, okay? It's not enough to say to the witness, it was dark out. Because I'm going to tell you later on, you need to do a chapter about it was dark. And you need to fill up a page of that chapter with all of the ways in which it's dark. So we're not just going to say it's dark. We're going to say what? You know, there were no lights. There were no street lights. That the closest street light was 2 blocks away. That there was no moon. That there were no cars going by. That there are no tall buildings nearby. That the street is tree-lined. Right? Isn't that more descriptive? What are we saying? You know what we're really saying? We're saying the same thing over and over and over again. Well, you know what? Repetition is good. That's why we all remember those jingles, right? Because they get repeated. Well, what you're repeating is a point. And the point is, it was too dark for this witness to see what the witness was claiming to see. But we've now been able to, the judge is not going to let you say, it was too dark to see, wasn't it? And you get the answer, yes, it was too dark to see. And you say, it was really too dark to see, right? How are you going to ask that question 7 times unless you do this description? What else does it do? Of course, it makes it much more interesting for the jury. We've been talking about an opening statement, how you be descriptive. Well, you're going to do exactly the same thing in cross-examination. Because you're testifying, you want your testimony to be interesting, you want it to be descriptive, you're going to break this into as many pieces as you possibly can. When you see witnesses run and be out of control and start telling their speeches, it's almost always because the lawyer invited it in some way. The best way not to issue this invitation is to force yourself to do this, to do one short question and one new fact per question. And when the witness runs, you say to yourself, did I offer an invitation? And how do you get them back? Short question, one new fact per question. Okay. Those one new fact per questions we're going to organize into chapters that are going to be in the shape of an inverse pyramid, all right? Because what we're doing is we're draining the witness down to a particular point. We're funneling everything down to the point that we are trying to make. And our cross-examination is a series of those points, okay? So the leading questions, one of the reasons that we call them leading is that they're supposed to be leading the witness to a particular place, right? And a series of leading questions does just that. So we need to know, right? Yogi Berra said, what's the famous line? If you don't know where you're going, you'll be lost when you get there. Where you're going. It can't be just that I want to discredit this witness. It needs to be, I need to make this particular point, and I'm going to craft questions that lead down to that particular point. Okay? Now, here's another thing that I'm going to tell you to do that a lot of people will think is crazy. And I will tell you also that this is absolutely the heart and soul to me of this system. You have to write it out. You have to write out the cross-examination. I am not talking about an outline, that I have a general idea of where I'm going, that I have certain subjects that I'm going to discuss. I'm talking about writing out every single question. And here's why. And it's a long list, okay? 1, you hear it in your head. when you do that, when you write out every single question, you hear this cross-examination in your head. And what that does is it means that you're playing the chess game with the witness in advance. What is it that great chess players do? They play 3 to 4 moves ahead of their opponent. How do we do that in cross-examination? We write it out. We play the game in our heads. While we're sitting in our offices, late at night, by ourselves, in a quiet place, in front of the computer. And we say to ourselves, what's going to happen when I ask these questions in this order? Where's the witness going to go? He's going to want to go that way. How do I close off that door? He's going to want to go this way. How do I close off that door? What's going to happen when I start to get into this? What objection is going to come from the prosecutor? I'm going to anticipate that. And I'm going to recraft my cross so that I don't get the objection. That's right. I am in danger of losing control by giving the judge the ability to interrupt my cross-examination by sustaining an objection. I'm going to think of a better way to do it where they can't win the objection. You have to play the game out in advance. I know what some of you are saying to me, okay? I can riff, I can improvise, I'm good on my feet, I'm quick, I'm fast. I know that you are. You are. And I don't want to tell you that you're not, okay? What I want to tell you is, if you think that Wynton Marsalis is only good because he's fast and quick, you're wrong. He's as good as he is because he is trained as a musician and understands the notes and understands the theory and understands that you can only get good at going off the page by learning intensely what is on the page. Okay? And it works for those of you, those few of you, who really are naturally good cross-examiners. It will make you better, I promise you. I'm telling you, I watched this happen, and I've watched it happen over and over again. It absolutely will make you better. So don't think to yourself, it's going to make me worse. It's going to keep me from doing my thing. It's going to keep me from being able to shuck and jive. No, it's going to make your riff better. It's going to make it stronger. It's going to make it more mellifluous. I promise you. You've got to be on the page in order to go off the page. I had to do it. Okay, so how are we going to do this? We're going to organize these things into chapters. What is it that we're going to write out? Figure out right now this chair. I want to give you an image of what it looks like if you cross-examine when it doesn't fit your theory. Okay? I know I'm going back a little bit, but because I found this and it's kind of a lot of fun, so I'm going to show it to you. I just want to leave you with the image of, it's a video. Let's go. Seriously, this is what cross-examining if it doesn't fit your theory is. Okay? You might as well try and bite off your own foot. I swear that's what you're doing. That's absolutely what you're doing. Okay? Your theory of the case is that low. That's where you want to be. That is absolutely where you want to be. Okay? I've done this. You know what this is? I'll tell you what this is. This is in a DUI case. Okay? Where the cop watches your client drive for 3 blocks before stopping. And in the course of that, and stops him for having a taillight out. And in the course of that 3 blocks, your client makes all sorts of extraordinarily deft driving maneuvers. Okay? changes lanes, puts on signals, slows down, stops, does all sorts of wonderful things that intensely advance your theory of the case. But this same cop, right, gets the license plate wrong, gets the color of the car wrong, right? Says that, you know, the client's 6'3" with brown hair, when in fact the client's 5'9" and blonde. You can make this cop look like an idiot. If you do, what you're doing is chewing off your own leg, right? You're allowing your instinct about somebody's trying to get away from you, right? Because all of that other stuff, right? You want that cop's credibility built up. You want him smart. You want him to be the smartest, most observant person that's ever seen anything. Because all of that stuff advances your theory of the case. All right. Chapters. Here's what chapters look like. Some of you may get the idea that I try a few DUI cases because, you know, examples come.
You can make the print a little larger.
To make the print larger?
I'm 60, so
We'll read it to the problem with this slide, actually, is that I've already made it too large. Because one of the things that I want to show you about this is what your page should look like. And I've made it so big so that the old farts like Grover can see the thing, that I haven't really shown you that there needs to be a third column here, all right? So what the page that you're going to write is going to look like is it has 3 columns. The first column is the source of how you know this information. The second column is the substance of the information, the question, or better, the statement. And the third column you leave blank for, or you put in things like a note here that you want to use a diagram of what that exhibit is. Or you leave it blank for making yourself a note during direct examination about something that the cop has added to this testimony that you need to cross-examine about, that you need to ask about. So the page looks like this, 3 columns. It has a title. The title is important. The way I do this is I make each one of these its own document in the word processor, okay? So that it has its own title. And you can have various ones of these things open, but then when you get done, you've got a single page. One of the rules that I'm going to give you about chapters that I was taught, and it's just because it works, it's not that there's any magic about it, is a chapter goes on 1 page. And if a chapter goes on more than 1 page, it's more than 1 chapter. You've got too many questions. If it goes on more than 1 page, it is at least 2 chapters. And think of 2 titles, and it keeps you, it gives you an ability to organize, and it gives you an ability to be flexible. Because you see, the other thing that this is going to do by organizing us into chapters is we get to decide the things that are important. This particular chapter is, I want to say to the police officer, no. I want to say to the jury that the horizontal gaze and nystagmus that they saw, that the police officer saw, was caused by flashing lights. Now, a judge would like me to say, what? Well, Mr. Hutt, that's one question. No, it's not one question. Because the officer's never going to give it to me. He's never going to give me that horizontal gaze and nystagmus is caused by flashing lights. He's going to fight me about that. All right? But what do I know? I know there are certain things that he must admit. And anything that has a source, I know he must admit because he said it before. Either in a transcript, that's page 28, line 23 of the transcript of the pretrial motions hearing, or if it was from a police report, it would say police report. Okay? If it was from a grand jury indictment, it would say the page of the grand jury indictment. If it's from a tape-recorded statement, it would say the page and line of the tape-recorded statement. Whatever it is. That's how I know he has to admit that. The things that are not sourced are what? The things that he will admit because they flow logically, and that probably are not anything that he's really got an interest in fighting me about, and if he does, he's going to look stupid, all right, because they're so simple. But I also know that I have no source for them, and that if he fights me about it, I can't go and impeach him. On the other hand, if he disagrees about any one of these things that I have a source about, I know it, and I know it immediately. And I'm not going, God, you know, I know somewhere in this file, in this discovery file, there is a place where he said. Have you done that? Has anybody ever done this in court? I know there's a place where he said it. Can you find it? What do? You go, Judge, can I have a moment? You can have a moment. You can have an hour. You can have 15 days. You ain't going to find it, okay? Unless everybody leaves the courtroom and goes home. Because you start doing this. You're looking through the files. It could be right in front of your face. It's the same reason that the clients in the DUI cases hand credit cards rather than licenses to the cop. You see this in the report? I watched him go past the driver's license 14 times. Yeah, of course, because he was so freaking nervous, right? It's got nothing to do with being drunk. It's the same reason you can't find the place in the police report. I know, I understand. The police report's only 3 pages long in a DUI case, right? You still can't find that line. Promise you. You look over there, big as day, it says, page 28, line 23, you go right to it. And that cop is going to learn real fast. Do not fuss this boy. You say it's true. Who else learns that? Who's telling the truth in this court?
You are.
Who's in control of the facts? Whose story makes sense? Who backs it up every single time he says it? That's the name of the game, folks. That's the name of the game. What's the one thing we can't say in opening? What's the one thing we can't say in closing? I believe what I'm telling you. I believe in what this witness said, right? Automatic mistrial, automatic all sorts of trouble. It's what we need to be saying with every fiber of our being. That's how we say it. We be organized, we be in control. That's how you do this. That's the way you know. So what things are we going to look for to prepare our cross-examination? Written statements, police reports, transcripts, anything, photographs, diagrams, whatever, investigative reports, right? Memos from your investigator. All of those things are get you the stuff of cross-examination, the stuff to put in both that first column and in the second column, okay? You get to decide what issues, what topics are important. When you're organized this way and you have one chapter per page, you know the other thing that allows you to do is mix those pages up. You don't have to go in chronological order in order to make sure that you keep where you're going. Because you've got your chapters. You know exactly right where you are. You can go back to that podium for an instant, take a look and see where you are and go on to the next chapter. You know what that does? Did anybody hear Denise say something about the jurors need to see with our vision? See, their vision of the case, the prosecutor's vision of the case, is some chronological thing in which their story gets told from here to here to here to here. And if what we do is we just counterpunch, then we're fighting on their territory. How do you win a debate? You frame the issue. You want to have a debate? I get to frame the issue. Promise you, I win every time. Every single time. This is how we frame the issue. This is how we get to say, these are the things that are important. This is the story, and it goes in this order. It also means that the witness is not going to follow where you're going, necessarily. It means that you're more in control. The witness is less likely to run. You've got to do every little thing that we can to capture that advantage. Okay? Chapters force you to make organizational decisions beforehand, right? Rather than doing it on your feet. You're so much better on your feet and being glib if you thought about it beforehand. I can give you so many more examples. You know, you watch Kobe Bryant play, you watch Larry Bird play. What do they say about those guys? Those are the guys that spend hour on hour on hour on the floor by themselves. Those moves don't just come from nowhere. They come from practice. They come from planning in advance. Okay. inverse pyramid, and we're never going to ask the ultimate question, all right? Flashing lights can cause horizontal gaze nystagmus, and flashing lights on your car. We're getting down to the ultimate question, which is, so, officer, horizontal gaze nystagmus you saw was caused by the flashing lights. Is the officer ever going to give me that? No. But if I ask these 8 questions beforehand, what is the only conclusion that a jury can reach? The one that he will never give me. And the one which, if I ask him, I will automatically get into a fight. I will again have entered the realm of chewing off my own leg. Because I'm going to try and get him to admit something that he's never going to admit, and I will get so balled up and so lost that the power of what I did is going to be lost. Here's another really, really good rule. When you get to the end of this chapter, and you get the good answer, which you decided when you wrote this out in advance was the end of this. By the way, when you're writing the question, when you're writing the questions out, or when you're doing a cross-examination, if you ever hear yourself begin a question with the word so, shut the fuck up. Okay? Stop. End. 0. Because so is a good clue to you that you're about to ask one question too many. You're about to try and tie it all together. You're about to try and take your sledgehammer out and take his head off. And it's not going to work. It's going to fight you about that. And you don't need to, because you asked all of these other things, and the jury gets the so question. Or you'll tell them about it again in closing argument. Okay? Here's another one. When you get to one of these things and there's a really nice question at the end of it that you've decided you can lead into and you get it and you do get the answer, you know what most of us want to do at that point? It was so much fun. It felt so good. We want to do it again. It really doesn't work well the second time around. And I swear to you, you'll watch yourselves do this tomorrow, and hopefully your colleagues and your teachers will point it out to you. All of us do this. It feels so good when you do this, and it works out right. You just want more, okay? Please, a little delayed gratification. Okay, by the way, you're writing this out. All of this is on the page. I say you do this on the computer. It's way easier to do it on the computer than to do shorthand, but I will also tell you, don't try and do it from the computer at the podium. I think you have to print it out, and you have to have those sheets there, because it's way too hard to scroll up and back and add things and take things out, but it's very easy to do that if you simply have pages, and at the top of each of your pages is a subject, and when the witness says something on direct, you say, I know that's about horizontal gaze nystagmus. I can flip through the top of those pages. I can find HGN. I can immediately go in there. The more flexibility you have, the more control you have. Okay? Let's see. What else can I tell you? If you're thinking to yourself, this sounds like a really lot of work. It is. It is. Here's the thing. When you get done doing this, you not only have this cross written, you have a whole bunch of other trial preparation stuff done too. And that's one of the huge payoffs of this. I came in and I heard Grover talking to the group in here about chapters of opening statement. And we talk about chapters of opening statement, and we talk about chapters of closing argument. If you take the biggest, most important key witness in your case that you have to cross-examine, and you spend the hours, days, it's weeks with some witnesses, folks, doing this, what you have at the end is not just a great cross, you happen to have the chapters that are going to be all, or if not all, most of the chapters of your opening and the chapters of your closing as well. This is where I spend the vast majority of my trial prep time. It does take an enormous amount of time. It forces you to go back through that discovery for the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth times, to read through those statements, those depositions, those transcripts for the third, fourth, and fifth time, you really do get to know what's in there when you're looking it up solely for the purpose of putting in that page number and that line number. You know where you're safe. You know where you're not safe. I'm telling you, the payoff is enormous. It's just absolutely enormous. Okay. What else? We're almost done. Pretty good. I hope that I've told you about the basics of how to get and maintain control. It's those three rules about one fact per question, only short questions, and only leading questions. What do you do when you lose control? There are some things that we all are going to want you to try tomorrow, that we're going to want you to try from here on out in your careers, because it will happen. Either because you invited it, or because the witness is so intent on doing it. And I will tell you another thing. If you do this, you will avoid, I believe, something like 75 to 95% of the problems of the witness running away. Because most of the time, we cause it by the questions that we ask. We ask complicated questions, we ask long questions, or we ask open-ended questions. All of those are invitations to the witness to run. And we eliminate most of our problems by doing the basics. But some of them run anyway. What kinds of things can you do when the witness is running away? That's it. You'd be astounded how effective that is. You just do this to the witness. You don't say anything. You just do this. It's amazing the number of people that will stop dead in their tracks. And you know what? You don't have to stop for long. Because you are in that pause, right? Like, you know, I don't know. Give me something.
Fly on shit.
No.
Fly on shit. You only need that much of a pause to get back into your flow, to ask some leading question. If you have done this right, the first thing that you can do is repeat the question in exactly the same words. Same question in exactly the same words. The car was blue. Well, the car was going down 1st Street. It took a left on 9th Street, and then what happened was it was weaving all over the road before it came to a screeching. Officer, the car was blue. Well, really what happened, what I'm trying to tell the jury here is, officer, the car was blue. Most of the time, you don't have to do it 3 times. If you've really asked that question, who wins the battle in front of the jury when the cop keeps saying those things? Does he look like someone that's truthful and honest? Is he looking like someone who's being easy and helpful, that he's providing them with clear, detailed information? No, he doesn't. He looks like someone who's desperately trying not to answer the question. And they are going to think to themselves, why does he not want to answer that question? That's that simple. And you win the battle. The vast majority of the time, they're going to say yes at that point, okay? Only works if you have in fact asked a very short question, right? You can change your inflection, right? Car was blue, blah, 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 blah. The car was blue. The car was blue, right? I mean, a million variations on this. But all of it, the jury gets the same idea, okay? Repeat the same question in exactly the same words. This works well, okay? This is the universal signal for timeout. You only need an instant to get back into your... And all of these things you get are very nonverbal, right? They're not interruptive. What we want to do is say, no, 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 officer, stop it. And then what happens? We're in a fight. You know, objection, he needs to answer. Counsel, let him answer. Blah, blah, blah. If you can avoid that, you're better off. So the less rude, the less interruptive you're going to be, the more successful you're going to be. If you need to be interruptive and verbal, be polite. If you just start talking over them, you know everybody's going to yell at you, right? If you say, I'm sorry, excuse me, My question was, the car was blue. It's all out, and you're calm, and you know they're going to say he's interrupting, but you sound so nice and so polite. It's very hard for anybody to be angry with you about it. Okay? What else? Verbal interruptions. Sliding a question into the next place. Excuse me, I'm sorry, my question. The most interruptive things, okay? Moving to strike, that it's non-responsive, okay? Asking the judge to direct the witness. This is one that I would suggest to you is so far down the list of possible tools for you to use that you should pretty much never bring it out. You know why? Because it's a nuclear backfire weapon. Because you know what happens? You ask for the judge for help, and the judge doesn't give it to you. The judge has just told the witness to keep on talking and keep on messing with you and keeping on answering those questions the same way, right? So unless you absolutely know that this judge is rolling his eyes and he's pissed off at the witness too, and he's going to say, yep, stop, and I frankly would never go there unless the judge has already gone there once on his own. Because it is absolutely the doomsday machine for your control if you don't get it. If the judge says something like, no, I think he's answering the question. Okay. I think there are some tools here for you to use. I promise you that they work. I promise you that they work. I am not lying to you when I say to you, this scared me more than anything when I started as a lawyer. When I sat here 20 years ago as a participant, I watched people get up here and do cross-examinations, and I thought to myself, I can't do that, I will never be able to do that, right? And 20 years have gone by, and here I am telling you how to do it. I promise you, they wouldn't be asking me to tell you how to do it unless I had done it once or twice myself with some success, okay? It works. I swear to you, it works. When you don't do it right, you look like what I looked like when I started doing this 24 years ago. And I looked a lot like these guys. Can you please make my first come back? Why is, there it is. For those of you that are interested, this came to me as titled, Why No One is Afraid of the Fridge. I get no doubt. Take somebody out. I'm going to shoot somebody, right? I'm armed. I know I'm going to kill you. Now, Judge, what? Come on. Help me out. Help me out. Just answer my question. Somebody help me. Don't be that, okay? Be in control, have fun, go do these things. I swear to you it'll help you win.